This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, this is Craig Abrams, President and CFO of Playtika, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 984.
We're going to grow through some acquisitions here. We've got to be ready for that. So that's another piece of the parts that I'm trying to work on to make sure that we are acquisition ready. From everywhere to like our general ledger, our planning system, to Salesforce, to our playbook of what happens T-minus 30 days to actual close a deal. The next piece is just making sure that we've got our processes and our data set up so that we can operate as efficiently as possible.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's episode, we speak with Bob Purcell, CFO of Billtrust. Bob Purcell's leap into the unknown wasn't just a step. It was a giant stride towards his future as a CFO. Or so the CFO of Billtrust tells us as he looks back on an early chapter of his career when he faced a daunting choice: join a distressed company teetering on the brink of failure, or play it safe. Driven by an unshakable belief in his abilities and a desire to test himself, he chose the former. You'll hear about Bob's high-risk, high-return career step and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. 37,025-1. These are the three numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI. Hello, we're speaking to Bob Purcell, CFO of Billtrust. Bob, welcome.
Well, great to be here, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, great to have you with us, Bob. And as always, we're going to ask you to take a look back for us. And we're looking for those experiences you feel actually prepared you for this role. What were those as you look back?
You know, I've got to say, it really has been a building block story, right? Like, I don't think there was any one thing that, oh, that was it. That was what prepared me. I would go back to my first, of course, my undergrad degree, but, you know, I started out at Deloitte here in Los Angeles in the audit practice. And even though I knew probably within 3 months, I may have made a grave mistake, right? I did not fit well with the audit kind of work. I preferred to be solving problems as opposed to being a necessary part of a company and getting an audit. But getting my CPA was critical to understand that language of business, right? I had to have that. And I think that was probably one of the first things. Then I was really fortunate to go to a very, at the time, a biotech it was at a crossroads in a lawsuit. I was at Amgen a long time ago, but they had two products and they were in a lawsuit with J&J. It could have ended right there, but they won the lawsuit. But I was part of a very neat culture of leadership development that one, if you expressed the desire, you excelled at what you were doing, you got moved around a lot. I was very fortunate to experience several different roles within finance, right? From accounting, corp finance, corp dev, treasury, you name it, right? I was able to go away from the corporate mothership to a facility and be the head finance person there. That was really unique. And I was there for a while, but I moved around a lot. I was like a gypsy within a company. It was a great experience, coupled with leadership development, right? Something I look back on is still, I think Amgen does a wonderful job of that today. They haven't stopped doing any of that. That really gave me the tools I needed. The next piece was, how do you test yourself, right? Like, how do you know you're ready? I had an opportunity. I was at Intuit for a handful of years. Loved the company and the culture. When an opportunity came up, there was a struggling asset that I was made aware of, and it was a pretty high risk, high return. But I knew I was ready. I knew I was ready. It was a stepping stone to CFO. I was going to become the chief accounting officer of a company called IPM. It was in some distress from a number of different reasons, which people can kind of Google if they want to. But I knew I could solve that. I knew I had the skills. I learned it, but you have to put it to test someplace. You got to figure out what you're made of. And I was tested across everything. Technical skills, ability to deal with boards, ability to deal with corporate governance issues, finance and capitalization, leadership churn. It could have been a business case for Harvard. It was really tight, but I knew if I got through that, I'd be able to get through anything and do anything. And sure enough, we kind of got through it. Board saw that. I got the promotion to CFO and haven't looked back. And those were all like those moments, right? You got to build your skills, then you got to be tested somewhere. You got to figure out what you're about.
Can I just take you back to that one chapter? And again, you said you stepped in as chief accounting officer, but at the time, the company was in trouble in some way, that you understood the way out, the path out, and you were willing to take that risk. Why? What was it about it? What was the challenge? As much as you understood it, the CFO door was at the end of the path if you succeeded?
Yeah, it was a little bit of all of those. Well, I think it was, I've never been one to kind of like find the other direction from a challenge. I'm very comfortable kind of just going straight into it. But I had seen so much in all the time that I was at Amgen, and as well as in a completely different world, going from biotech to fintech and into it, I had seen a lot. I was ready. I knew I was ready. I did my due diligence on the company I went to called IPM, right? Long story short, they had an embezzlement event. It was a publicly traded company, publicly traded debt. They had an embezzlement event, and we all knew about it, right? There was one of our competitors at Intuit in the payment space, and the people I talked to a lot of advisors, coaches, and they said, you know what, you're probably can fix it, but do your due diligence to make sure that you're not going to kind of wreck your career doing it. I did my due diligence. I found out a lot about the situation, and I looked at it from a standpoint of, you know what, not sure if anyone else is going to be willing to jump into this. I know I can fix it, and I knew that there was roughly 500 souls in that company that did need someone to try to fix it. And it was a high risk, high return, but I knew I would have that opportunity to become a CFO in the future. Rare opportunity, right? They just don't come along that often, and you need that kind of break. So I figured if I can fix this, then I'd have a shot at CFO. There's always luck that happens, right? There's some things that kind of fall your way, but I was just confident that I could fix it.
Your resume looks a lot like other finance leaders we speak to in this sense. How many years at Amgen? You really a decade at least. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, just over around 12.
Well, 12 years. Yeah. So this investment of career years where you really came up the ranks and earned your stripes in finance. And then it's on to the CFO path. Now, what's that path? That's where you're going to break away and you're going to find opportunities, just as you were describing to us. How am I doing? Am I close? I mean, I think when you left Amgen, you knew you wanted to be a CFO. You knew you wanted to find the right company. Am I close? How would you?
Spot on.
Did you look at some promising small biotech opportunities as well? I mean, was there anything that led you to not stay in biotech, or was it, if the option was there, maybe you would have?
Well, I think this kind of goes to, I mentioned something about coaches, right? I was very fortunate and to have some really good dialogue with the then CFO, who's now CEO, Bob Bradway. He gave me some really good advice because I asked him, because I went off to one of the operating sites at Amgen, came back, what should I do? And he said, listen, if I'm in your shoes, go do something else. I thought that was unusual at the time, but I was like, you know what, I think he's on to something. I'm very single-threaded in biotech, been here for 12 years. And at that time in Southern California, it wasn't exactly a biotech hub, right? It was somewhere, some down in La Jolla, up in San Francisco, but it wasn't a whole lot here. I'm like, you know what? I think I want to just go do something, right? And I've always had a great passion for technology. I'm that first adopter. I'm the one who's got a bunch of gadgets around the house that drives my wife crazy, right? But I'm like, I want to go and do something that I really enjoy. I've always tried to do that, follow my passion. And that kind of led me into fintech. And when I said luck before, my next door neighbor worked into it. So he has always been telling me about the culture and how they operate. I'm like, hey, I think that's a great fit for me. So, but I knew it was going to be that next step up. And what I didn't know is, okay, how do I get there? Amgen was such a large organization. I wanted to go down to like slightly smaller. Intuit wasn't exactly like small company. It was still, several thousand people, but it was a smaller part of a division that I could really cut my teeth into and look and see what else is out there and learn something different that I think that would probably give me a good edge to look for a CFO role.
Now, before we move on to find out more about Billtrust, we've had a few finance leaders who had worked at Amgen, and I'm just curious about this company. What sets it apart in terms of culture as you look back at those years now, that investment of career years? And again, that's definitely shaped you. What sets it apart in some way? Is there something unique about it, or?
But when I was there, I think that you're rewarded well, right? Certainly with the equity component. It's very difficult to leave an environment like that when companies do that. But the fact that I was picked up and dropped into other places to continue my learning, I never got stale again, right? If you do well, you exceed in it, and you've got a willing to kind of go do something different, you're not going to be left someplace. You express an interest in what you want to do. I really didn't know for the vast majority of my time at Amgen whether I wanted to be a CFO or what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do different things, and they made that a very easy endeavor. You just had to do well in your role. I think the next piece of it from a culture perspective was, and I learned this, and it's still part of my DNA today, is a very strong say-do relationship, right? What you say is what you do. But it's not only what you get done, it's how you get it done. And ingraining those values that they built the company around at Amgen, I think was super unique, and it was a great opportunity to kind of understand. Right, there's plenty of people that get a lot done out there, and they leave the wake of destruction at their path. Right, this was getting things done, but doing it the right way. Right, valuing input, diversity, collaborating with folks. Right, doing the right thing. Like, I still remember those values today. Uh, I think the last piece of that culture was, I think, the fact that it was very inclusive from a knowledge perspective, and that you knew what was happening in the company at any point in time. Right? It was there was a very good sharing of information that allowed you to kind of see what was happening, and the way that we kind of structured the alignment from strategic objectives down to department goals, down to individual goals. It was a very strong process that we had, very structured, so that every person, even down to the analyst, knew how they were contributing to the top level of strategic objectives from the company. Unique. Those are kind of best in class things that I've kind of picked up and trying to take everywhere I've been. But when you operate in that kind of environment, you know the impact you're having, you get rewarded for it, and you know how to operate really well.
Yeah.
And you've got these role models above you that are doing the exact same thing. Why would you want to leave? Right? It was a great experience.
When you do leave, was there a recruiter involved, or was it a relationship at the time? Or
no, I took a package to go do something different, and again, I was lucky enough to kind of work right next door to someone that worked at Intuit, so my transition was pretty seamless. But it was, I'm lucky. Let's just put it that way. I'm very lucky to have worked for two world-class companies, back to back at scale, with great cultures, great leaders, phenomenal CEOs.
I'll mention just to the listeners that you have had multiple CFO chapters today, and we may have a few more career-related questions for you. But right now, let's move on to the business segment and ask you about Billtrust. Tell us about this company. What's it about today? What are its offerings?
Well, like I mentioned before, right? I choose these opportunities based on like what I find interesting and a passion to me. I was the customer before. So Billtrust, right? We offer a unified AR platform that combines not only the credit, the billing, the invoicing, the collection, cash application. It combines all that into one unified offering that allows customers to have a very seamless experience where they could bill their customers and collect in any way that their customers want to pay them. It's been around for roughly 20 years. We were publicly traded. Now we're privately owned by EQT. Great support from them. And I think we do our best to kind of elevate the role of the finance professional, to give them an amazing tool to help them do their job better, faster, more efficiently, to be stars in their own organization. They may not be bringing in new customers, but they're delivering value for the company that they're at.
Now, Bob, could you provide to us maybe an abbreviated history of Billtrust's capital structure? Where is it in its growth and funding?
Yeah, so it was over 20 years, and it was primarily founded by Flint Lane, who's still on our board today. But they had multiple rounds of funding, of course, and it somewhere in the last 3 years, right, they saw a need to get additional liquidity and change their capital structure, so they did a SPAC, and we're a publicly traded company for a little over a year. And it was really, at that time, things were changing within the company, the landscape of fintech, and they got the attention of some private equities who thought, hey, this is a wonderful asset, great bones, great tools. We think we can do something outside the public arena. So there was a lot of interested parties. EQT was the one who happened to win that bid. That was about little over a year ago, December of 22 is when they closed the transaction. And Billtrust became a privately owned portco of EQT.
Now, when you arrive, which is December, the end of December 2022, can you tell us about, what, as far as a finance organization is concerned, what is the chapter you're being tasked with? What are you opening? What are your priorities as you arrive? What are you looking at?
Yeah. It was so, within software, I think what's really important is the instrumentation that you have. I was charged with making sure that we had the right set of instrumentation in the company to look at. Think of it as, right, you're flying, I'm not a pilot, but whether it's a car or whatever, you got a dashboard in front of you, right? It's not good enough to just have an altitude or a speedometer. You need to know your gas level too. And you need to know other key measures. And so I think that was one of the biggest things. But just make sure we have the right instrumentation to run the company at best in class. The next was just making sure, right, we're going to be growing, right? I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that we're going to grow through some acquisitions here. We've got to be ready for that. So that's another piece of the parts that I'm trying to work on to make sure that we are acquisition ready. From everywhere to like our general ledger, our planning system, to Salesforce, to our playbook of what happens T-minus 30 days to actual close a deal. The next piece is just making sure that we've got our processes and our data set up so that we can operate as efficiently as possible. I use the example of people that we've got great leading edge systems, but sometimes we carry water from this into that system, and then we carry water from this system to that system and then back, right? Let's let these systems talk to each other, right? We can pull back and leverage our skills and experiences to be driving value for the organization versus carrying water. So that's the last piece of it that's really, really critical. We're constantly looking at talent too to make sure we've got the best and brightest in the organization.
Were there any strategic hires for finance over the last 12 months or so? Was there FP&A? Was that already ship shape, or what can you share with us?
Yeah. Listen, I think I gotta respect everybody that's been in the organization. I think the folks that were at Billtrust got it to where it was at, which is a phenomenal company with great products, right? We've got to consistently respect that, tip our hat, right? That's why we're here. I think we've made some multiple changes within my organization. We do have a new head of FP&A, which is a really critical hire. To not only know, and this is someone I worked with in the past, to not only know like where we're at, but how we get to where we want to be from a best in class, but not just, we can't be just reporting the news. We've got to be delivering. So that's a very key part of our role. And very recently, we just hired a chief accounting officer who is, one of the best in the game. I'm very lucky to have been able to attract that individual. So we've got two very critical hires within the last 6 months.
Well, we always like to ask you about top of mind metrics, but we're wondering if there's a metric that perhaps you have helped the organization raise the profile of, or, educate the organization about maybe a little differently, that here's a number that we've kind of overlooked in the past that we need to pay closer attention to. I don't know. I could go on with the different scenarios. We're looking for a metric that's top of mind for you that you have kind of championed, and maybe it's not a metric. Maybe it's just a way of looking at the numbers in general. Anything?
Without a doubt. It's all about ARR, baby. So annual recurring revenue. And I would say even a more specific double click on that, right? Gross retention, right? Delivering value for our customers so they can't see going anywhere else. Retaining our customers. No lost customers. That is a very key focus for us today. It's our customer acquisition costs are not low, right? It takes a lot of energy, takes time to acquire customers. We don't want to be adding them at the same pace that we're losing them. So we've got to have a very high growth retention number. That I think we've over the last year made sure that as many parts of the organization that can have a part of that play well, whether it's our customer service, sales organization, revenue operation, finance and accounting. Like we're thinking customer first, right? We we exist because they allow us to exist, and that doesn't go past us at all, right? So let's give them the experience that they signed up for, that they're paying us for with our products, making sure that they're delighted every day, and we're delivering innovation to them so that they can focus on what they're doing in their business. They don't have to worry about their back office AR collections.
Now, is there a customer success team, and usually that's outside of finance, but I would imagine that it's that relationship where you're together trying to understand better the path of the customer and where, if there's any attrition, we can see it more quickly and understand how to remedy it.
Yeah.
Or how am I doing? I mean, are those your daily conversations, or is it different?
I would say it sounds like you've probably been following us around a lot of our Zoom meetings and been in some of our calls because you're spot on. We have a couple different groups, customer success and as well as service groups that pay very close attention to our customers, right? We use great technology, whether it's Gong or some other things, to key in on conversations, words that are used, right? Understand what's a pain point for our customers so we can get on it immediately. Understanding who might be at risk so we can get in front of them and have a conversation. Say, what's not working well for you that we can solve? And so I think over the last year, that's been a massive focus for us to just make sure that we're doing everything we can to, again, just make sure our customers are really enjoying our products. And if we're doing our job and our products are doing their job well, then our customers aren't thinking about our product. They're just using it and it's helping them be more efficient and effective in their business.
Have you, now that you've stepped into the role and been there for over a year, was there any organizational change or something that you've encouraged to achieve that collaboration required? We're talking about this customer success organization, but it also involves sales, as we know, and whether it was a formal meeting every part of the, every Thursday, or whether it was something more informal that needed to be done, or whether it was a different data set, or getting data people more into the conversation and understand why certain numbers aren't as visible as they more frequently. Because I think so many finance leaders are tackling a similar situation, and sometimes it's just more outreach from finance or the other way around. Anything more you can shed light on and how you're achieving that collaboration that's required? And
Well, first of all, making sure that we understand that it's all about the customer, right? Like it doesn't matter, if I come or my team comes with some finance ideas right, it's all about the customer. So we're going to do what's right for the customer. But it is that collaboration. Just at a minimum, make sure we're discussing and we have the right cadence to do it. The world doesn't operate in month increments, right? It's daily. And so we get together with our customer support organizations, we talk to sales. These are weekly discussions or sometimes daily discussions about our customers, whether it's on the deal desk or whether it's discussing at-risk customers or looking at product usage. So these are things that we look at on a very regular basis. But establishing the cadence, right? Even if you don't have anything that you need to talk about, having the forum to do it, recurring opportunities to kind of get together as a team. And that's great if there's nothing that we need to address, but usually there is always something to address. But at least getting that operating pace down so that you're doing it on a regular basis, and then it just becomes routine, right? And becomes part of your rhythm, part of what you do every day. And you got to make sure you got all the people, right? So most of these meetings are kind of team-based, where we're pulling different people from different groups together to look at the current situation, whether it's we have someone in our support organization creates a report. I won't tell you what we call it, but we got a report that basically lists the customers that we believe we probably need to talk to, spend some time with. And then we figure out, okay, what is there a root cause here? How do we solve it? Make sure no one else has the same experience. And then who's going to do the outreach? Then we kind of track that. I would say we're fairly maniacal about addressing these issues.
I want to touch on AI with you, and we're curious whether you're adopting it more into your operations. And maybe it was already existing there, but I would think over the last 12 months there have been a lot of conversations about how can we leverage this more effectively for finance even. What would you share with us?
Yeah, so I would say generally we're using generative AI to sift through data and to synthesize it, right? So the most compelling use cases we've got have a great offering. We can provide better customer service, and we embed this in our products, right? So it allows our customers to get questions answered, which would otherwise require them to go on a call with us, right? So they can do it within our products. So that's the outrage part. At Billtrust, within our organization, right? We're looking at ways that we can deploy it to help us do things internal to the company. Still very new, right? Like several of us have these ChatGPT accounts, subscriptions, and we're able to kind of do analytics in it. So we're starting to learn internally how we do it for ourselves, but we've had it embedded in our products for some time now. We are revamping the AR accounts people platform with some really great additions, new interface that's going to be giving customers some insights across their entire business, a really nice 360 view of their order to cash. And we're launching a pilot, we call it Copilot, that is going to offer some really interesting capabilities to our customers. So I would say we're solving for our customers probably first and foremost, because we've been doing that for years, having AI in our products. But we're really bringing it in-house now with some very specific use cases. We just want to make sure we're careful and smart with it, right? You can't just be loading your company information into ChatGPT. So we're being very mindful about that, and we've got wonderful folks in our compliance and data sciences organizations that are giving us insights on how to use it effectively.
Well, we are up to our finance strategic moment question, where we ask you just to share one moment of insight that you've had along the way. We know you've had a few of these already today, so this might seem like a challenge for you, but just one moment of insight that you've experienced. Anything come to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Oh, absolutely. I would say, and I gave you one example already about testing yourself. But I have another one. When I was at Amgen, I wanted to go do something different, and the CFO at the time said, "Well, you should get away from the mothership, right? Get away from the headquarters, go somewhere else, and be that head of finance. You're going to learn a lot about yourself." And so I took him up on that offer. My family and I, we moved to Rhode Island, so I was site finance lead at that facility in Rhode Island. Grew up in Southern California, so this was a big change, right? Not only from a climate perspective, but also just a different geography. And the buck stopped with me, right? Like, I don't have anyone else to go to with anything there. It was me. And that was one of those really unique moments that I was like, okay, I think I can do this, right? I've got great training, I've got skills. I could be in front of a facility of 1,700 people giving a presentation about our operating and how we're doing for the quarter, et cetera. Like, you need to test yourself, right? You have to figure out what you're made of sooner or later. And that was my first kind of moment. And I knew after that, I'm like, okay, I think I could do this.
CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. We're gonna jump to our mentoring round, where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We want you to go back to that first time you stepped into a CFO role, and of course that was after you were chief accounting officer, as we were describing. But there must have been something that first 60 days after you stepped into the role, and finally you're the CFO. You wish somebody had told you about. There's something you just didn't know about the role or how massive it was. It all fell on your shoulders. What would you offer another newcomer to the C-suite? What's the piece of advice you wish someone told you?
That's a really good question. I would say to step into it with confidence, and to make sure that it's one thing to kind of do the role, technically do it, but you are a very senior person in your organization, you're face of the company, right? Don't be afraid to kind of step up and whether it's be very vocal in what's happening in the organization. I don't think right out of the gates I was communicating probably to the organization enough. I just assumed, okay, the CEO is going to do that. But if I'm giving myself some advice back then, I would say step into the role and take charge, right? Be more vocal, more communicative, and not be afraid to kind of just go through that. I had to have a discussion with the CEO where he said, hey, it's okay for you to kind of step up and I can go do something else. And so that happened pretty quickly, but that was something that if someone would have given me that advice, I think I probably would have, at least as a CFO. I've been in the company for years already, but as a CFO, I think things may have gone off to a little bit quicker start.
We'd like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for us. We're wondering, maybe there's something most of your colleagues don't know about you. Anything that perhaps in general most people don't know about you?
I'm an open book, pretty much. Personally, though, right, there's two things I love, and I share this with most of the colleagues that work with me on a regular basis. Right, that I was one of the first in my family to kind of graduate from college. My dad was an American Indian, and so I do belong to the Karuk tribe in Northern California. And on my mom's side, my grandfather worked he was an animator, and he worked at Disney, and he helped invent Jiminy Cricket.
The friend of Walt Disney's Pinocchio.
Yeah, so and it's probably also equally important to note that I cannot draw to save my life. So it stopped with him.
Well, I have to say that's a uniquely American story. What about a book recommendation for us?
Oh wow, really well. I don't really escape with it, but I do refer to it quite a bit. I got it handy. It's um, Jocko Wilcox, um, Extreme Ownership. He's a Navy SEAL, and great advice in there about it's if you're other people you're with, whether you're in the military or in a company or whatever, if you can't trust everybody around you to do their role, right, it fails. The whole thing fails. And so, right, if he gives plenty of great examples of different theaters he was in, and he had to rely his life with people around him. But he does a great job in that book, Extreme Ownership, to translate that to how that could translate to your personal life, the companies. It's a really great book. I would say probably maybe a couple times a month, I probably open that back up and look for something that was said that I can use within our organization.
Interesting. Nice selection for us. Thank you for that. We are up to our final question, where we're going to ask you to look forward finally, and we're interested in your 12-month CFO priorities. What would those be?
Well, the first one is that we've gotten past our first year with our sponsor EQT. The second one is accelerating growth. So I want to make sure that we can grow as fast as possible. The second one is connectivity of our system and our data. We want to finish that one so that we can look back and not have to worry about how the data moves in our organization. It's really tight and it's really seamless. The third thing is just being acquisition ready. We're going to finish that work. We're going to make sure we can go. I wouldn't say it's a far stretch for us to be comfortable, really, really comfortable. We could do something today, but I want to make sure that we've got a playbook ready to go, and we're pretty close to that. So those are really the really large things that I'm focused on for this year.
Bob Purcell, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Anytime, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. We hope 2024 is treating you well. If you haven't already, we hope you'll pay a visit to CFOThoughtLeader.com and go ahead and subscribe to our Mentoring Round newsletter, where we highlight the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our recent CFO guests. Also, LinkedIn users, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.